Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Awakening with me, Reza Ghazim. Religion and culture are intertwined to the point that they seem indistinguishable. Yet we see communities that have migrated to significantly different cultures, questioning, challenging, and evolving their own practices to deal with the different practical realities. Does this mean that culture practices get in the way of religion? How can Muslims differentiate between religion and culture?
The question of culture is central to debates concerning Islam today, given Islam is one of the fastest growing religions in the world. Although it must be reiterated that Islam is primarily a religion and not a culture, one should immediately add that religion never finds expression outside a culture, and that conversely a culture never takes shape without deferring to the majority values and religious practices of the group constitutes it. This week we went out and asked, how can Muslims differentiate between religion and culture?
Religion has its own place and culture has its own place. Like a lot of things where culture will tell you to do, it's against the religion. So you just put that part of the culture away, and I guess I can only say you prioritize religion over culture. I can't really say how you can differentiate them.
They should actually benefit from both. They should benefit from culture and from religious education. In many countries, culture refers to the tribes, to the settlement of the tribe. Islam refers to the settlement of entire population. And really, Islam should bring these people together, regardless of all the differences. As for the cultures, it's all that you and me like in the colors. I would prefer lilac, you will like something dark pink.
As far as I'm aware, I think religion has always had a positive role to play in allowing, any kind of positive tenets of culture to flourish and to be kind of considered to be part of the tradition without any real problems or tensions, In Malaysia, for example, we've had Malaysian culture that had existed prior to Islam coming, that still exists to this day, because culture adds color to any community, and especially if it's positive things.
To address these issues, we have our esteemed guest, Professor Tariq Ramadan. Welcome to the program.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. I wanted to start off, what do we mean by culture within a religious framework?
Yes, I think this is the starting point, because we are always talking about cultures, but we don't have a clear definition. First, when we speak about culture, is three things. The first one is a system of values. So when we speak about the culture, any culture, there are values, a hierarchy, what is acceptable and not acceptable. The second thing is codes of conduct and behavior. And this is also something which is important, because it's based on language, but also based not only on the explicit things we say, but the implicit things we understand. So for example, the way you look at people, the gesture is part of a culture, a behavior on a daily basis, very small details, but also very important things. So this is also something which is very important. Add to this that within culture, because it's a system of values and behavior, behind it you will always find a religious reference. It could be from very old religious traditions, very old system of belief, because this is also something which is important. Behind the system of behavior or the code of conduct and the values, you will find beliefs that are very important. So this is why we have to be very cautious. Religion is not culture, but there is no culture without something which is religious in it, and there are no religions without being integrated into a culture in a specific period of time or in history.
Religion brings its own set of values, so why can't religion exist, without that cultural kind of thing.
Because there is no humanity without cultures. This is the reality of it. And for example, when we come to the Quran, we understand that we have been created through a male and a female, and God made us tribes and nations. Tribes and nations is a system of values, it's a code of conduct, and add to this a religious factor. So yes, every single religion, it's coming with its own values, but this is connected and this is going to be integrated when it comes to revelation, for example, into cultures that are already there. So for us, from an Islamic viewpoint, it's very important to take it as something which is very positive. In fact, there is no other way to live our life but to be connected to a culture. So it's positive, and we have to take it as positive. And then once again, all the cultures are opening up something which is the realm of permission. And yes, this is good. Yes, what is permissible for them? الطيبات, everything which is good. So the cultures are positive. But we have to be very cautious, because the cultures are the way we live our life, but at the same time they could be prison where the system itself is preventing us from looking at the world as it is through values that has to be challenged within time and within our historical experience.
One of the points that you made was that religions came and have to be integrated into the culture. I mean, the reason for a religion coming, as it were, is because there is something that the religion wants to impact on that culture.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, does the culture, if you like, become a hindrance to the religion? How does that?
Yes, that's a very important point, because for example, in Islam, as I was saying, we look at culture in a very positive way. So, الأصل في الأشياء الإباحة, as we say in the Shiite tradition and the Sunni tradition, the principle in everything which has to do with social relationship, transactions, and interpersonal relations is permission. So culture is good, and everything which is not against our principle or our principles within the religion are accepted as part of our identity. So you are an Iranian, you are an Egyptian, you are a European, whoever you are in this culture, everything which is not against your principles is yours. So you take it. Now there is a problem which is very important. All the cultures should be accepted in a positive way, but all the cultures should be checked. Why? Because sometimes in the culture you have things that are normalized, accepted, that are in fact problematic. For example, in any patriarchal society, the society is good, but this projection of the right of the male over anything else could lead you towards a reading of the scriptural sources that is male-oriented and not based on justice. So you come with the text and you challenge the culture. So this is why the first perception is always positive, but we have to be cautious with culture to check what is coming out of it. And for us as Muslims, the starting point of everything, for example, a culture is based on a language. So the language of Islam in the Quran is the Arabic language, but the cultures of Islam is not the Arabic cultures. It's something which is more universal than that. So we have to take the Quran and to check what in the Arabic cultures are things that are not agreeing or not acceptable from a religious viewpoint. So we have this tension that sometimes the culture, as it was positive at the first step, could be negative in the second, and we have to challenge this from our understanding of the religious principles.
Does religion have the right to impose its ideals on a culture?
That's a moral question, and it has to do with your understanding of religion. Of course, if you believe that this religion is the truth, it has the right to do so. And more importantly, I would say from a human perspective, it's always very important to have a set of values that are helping you. The values are helping you to check on the cultural behavior, because you are used to it. And you know, all the prophets, peace be upon all of them, They were facing people who were very, very scared of any change. وجدنا آباءنا كذلك يفعلون. We found our fathers and mothers doing so we have to say, oh no, be careful. It's not because things were done in the past that they are right in the present. So you have to check. So religions are coming and helping us with philosophies, but from an Islamic perspective, not only you have the right, but it's a human duty to challenge cultural traditions by checking. Are we talking about justice? Are we talking about equality? Are we talking about freedom? Because as much as a culture is helping you to promote values, it could in fact trap you into something which is against the values. So it's very important. And for example, for us, European Muslims or Western Muslims, what do we have to do? Is to accept everything which is good in the Western culture. But we have to check by saying, oh, there are things in this culture that you think are normal, and for us, they are problematic. So we are coming through this process of coming back to our values to check our habit. So this is also something which is essential in the relationship with culture. To celebrate cultures in the way sometimes we are doing is problematic because sometimes our cultures are acting against our values. So we have to check.
Has religion created a culture in that sense?
Yes and no, and this is also something which is important. You know, every one of us, we have multiple identities. One part of our identity, of course, are our principles from a religious viewpoint, but we are also dealing with history, collective psychology, a specific country. So the cultural environment is something which is very important. Religion is nurturing this. It's feeding this culture with values, with, for example, a concept of life and death. Of course, it's promoting something. But you cannot reduce the cultural dimensions to the religious principles. There is always something which is more than that. How can we feel this? In a very practical term. You are a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. You come from Pakistan, I come from Egypt. We talk to one another. We have the same principles, the same understanding of the priorities, but the way you laugh is not the way I laughed. Your sense of humor is not my sense of humor. So my religion, as your religion and your principle, are not going to impact on your cultural dimension or your cultural identity to the point that there is nothing left out of the culture. Of course not. And it's exactly the same in the West. And for example, British, even in Britain, and for example in European countries, you will see cultural features that are coming with language, that are coming with gestures, sense of humor. So all these dimensions are very important for us, and we have to take this as something which is positive. It's a way of dealing with our diversity. So religion is not reducing our cultural background into something which is unique. No, we have to deal with all these dimensions. So we have multiple identities, and we have to reconnect, to try to get at peace, to get peace within ourselves. Mean my cultural identity and my religious identity are coming together, and there is no contradiction. There is no contradiction. I keep on repeating to Western Muslims, no problem. I'm a Western by culture, a Westerner by culture. I'm a Muslim. So now the challenge for me is to take the values from here and to challenge the culture in order to have a culture that is mine. One last point. You have people who are Christians in Muslim majority countries, and the best example was Edward Said. Edward Said is a Christian Palestinian. He was saying, I'm a Muslim by culture. Meaning what? He speaks Arabic, he was living in Egypt and Palestine, and then he took from the environment everything which was culture. And Islam was there. Islam was within all this culture. He was not a Muslim, and he said, I'm a Muslim by culture, understanding the way it has an impact on him without sharing the values.
One of the points that you mention is this idea of the Western Muslim and locating that. And there's a lot of baggage associated with the Western or the British and the British Muslim, because there is a sense that you are making yourself different from the Ummah, while you recognize that you need to recognize each other through as nations and tribes and so on and so forth. But there's a whole set of baggages around those words and language that comes into this as well. How do you deal
yes,
with that?
and I think that this is where we don't have here a problem, a scholarly problem. We have a psychological problem. We feel so much attacked, and we are nurturing a complex of inferiority that we think, oh, it's not possible really to be completely a European or Western and to be a Muslim. We are ourselves victimizing ourselves in a way where we don't feel that we can make it. But we have to be confident and to make it the other way around. To say, look, I have my principles. I'm a Muslim. These are my values. These are my principles. And now I have these cultures around me: the American, the Canadian, the British, the French. And what shall I do? I have to come in and not to do what the people are saying, integrate within the culture and forget your identity. No. I come to my principle and I integrate from the cultures everything which is right. I take from the cultures the best of them. And exactly what I have to do with the Arabic cultures, by the way. Anyone who thinks that you are a better Muslim because you are coming from an Arabic culture, I think it's wrong, because if you look at the Arabic cultures, we know how many things are in contradiction with Islam. But this is what we have to do in the West. With a sense of confidence, we take what is good and then we challenge things that are problematic. But in the name of our principles, and this is where I have a problem with some who are talking about integrating within the West, and they forget the Islamic principles, and they are losing the principles in the name of cultural integration. I would say the opposite. Keep the principles and take from the culture what you could integrate into your system of values. And this is where the Muslims should be strong, we should be confident and interacting, not being scared of taking.
Some interesting points, and we'll come back and perhaps pick up on a couple of those. We like to keep this show as interactive as possible and really value your comments. Here is what you sent us this week.
This week we asked, how can culture and religion be differentiated? Ali from the UK says, culture has always been a constantly changing variable, with religion acting as a moral anchor to guide Muslims throughout history. And Sarah from the USA says, Islam is a multiracial and multicultural phenomena, embracing a diversity of people from all four corners of the world. And that's all the comments we have for this week. Don't forget to leave your views on our Facebook and Twitter page.
How do we decide on things that are more complex? What is it that we're going to keep to retain that Islamic identity?
Yes, I think this is the most difficult questions that we have when it comes to this issue. Why? Because sometimes the scholars as well as the ordinary Muslims are idealizing the past. And what they want is to reproduce today the models of the past. And that's wrong. It's not going to work. Even the model of Medina now, if you want just to come and to implement this in London, it's not going to work. Because London now, it's an international city connected to the world. Medina at that time was not. So you can't do that. What do we have to do is to come back to the origin, to extract and to take the principles and to try to understand the way, and you have now to think about it, to know the environment, to know your society, and to try to implement the principles. So, and the principles means also, when we are talking about the principles, it means that there is a hierarchy, there are priorities, and we need to stick to this. For example, when it comes to wherever I am, to be able to say the Shahada, that there is one God and that I'm following the Prophet, peace be upon him. This is the starting point of me being a Muslim. To pray, to fast, to give the zakat. All these things are first the credo, so the creed, it's the 6 pillars of faith, the 5 pillars. These are fundamentals. Why? Because they give you, Buniya al-Islam ala. This is the house, these are the foundations. So you come with this. And then you look at the culture and you prioritize. The problem that we have with some Muslims, under attack, for example, in India, in Africa, in the West, is that because we are attacked, we take a secondary issue and we make it the first. So the people are deciding for us what is the priority. That's wrong. Our priorities should be set by ourselves. So this is what we have to do by saying, look, the concept of life and death come first for me. It's not that you are come with a detail, for example, or a secondary issue and say, this is, you know, you have to eat halal. If you don't eat halal, you are not a good Muslim. This is a secondary issue. Of course, it's important, but the first is, what is it? What is the point to eat halal when you don't even pray? Which we see now in many communities, that they are coming with details and they think that by being aggressive or attacking on secondary issues, you are more a Muslim. So we have to prioritize and to come with a sense of our identity. What comes first should be said by ourselves, so we have a sense of what are the fundamentals, and then you deal with the secondary issues as secondary issues, and you build here a sense of confidence and belonging to a society where you decide what is the framework, what is the way, and what are the principles.
What is your take on the culture of moral righteousness that is sometimes created as a result of religious dogma? Because in a sense, being able to challenge it, you need to have that sense of a moral, that what you're doing is morally correct. But then there is something else that develops that goes on, perhaps, does it go beyond that, or is it right? Is it healthy?
No, it is. I think that what the culture, you know, the morality and righteousness, it's coming from many sources. There is a French philosopher and German philosophers like Kant, for example, who are talking about this. And it mirrors what we have in the Islamic philosophy here and the Islamic scriptural sources, that you have two sources, and cultures are producing a moral framework that you take from culture, and at the same time you have religions doing the same, and Islam is bringing you a set of values and a sense of what is moral and what is the good character, al-akhlaq al-islamiyya. So you can take from both, and this is why I'm always saying to Muslims, you should always be open. If you have in the Quran that we have made, we were made tribes and nations in order to know each other, it means that this knowledge of the other is useful, that you will take from this. So this morality that is coming out of the surrounding culture is something that you have to take. It's something that you have to value. And why is it so important? Because when Muslims came to Africa and came to Asia, they were very quick to find their way, not by bringing everything which is Islamic against the surrounding culture, but nurturing within the culture the sense of morality that was already there. So to call is to recall. To say, it's already there, it's already in your culture. And this is what we have to do as Muslims. We should stop talking to the West as if there is nothing in the West. There are lots of values in the Western culture that we have to remind the people, that we have to recall in order to have this sense of the universal, that is the shared universal that we have.
Sometimes culture is, cultural practices actually define how religion is practiced and are very much integrated. When people migrate from one place to the other, how much of that is necessary to hold on to keep that continuity in religion? Very briefly, if you could answer that.
Yeah, that's a very important question, and I would say, as was saying this for years to the second and third generations of Western Muslims, for example, born here, as in Africa, it's always a question of challenging what you got. It's very important to get the legacy of your parents, for example, when you come, but be careful. Don't make this legacy your jail, not being able to deal with the surrounding society and the surrounding culture. Take from what you got and promote what you find around you as something which is positive as well.
Thank you. The culture of Islamic practice has evolved and perhaps will continue to do so. How this evolution is navigated will no doubt be up for debate to ascertain whether the moral values enshrined in the Quran are being appropriately housed in Muslim cultural practices. The time is up for today's topic. I would like to thank Professor Tariq Ramadan for his views, and of course all of you at home for watching. Goodbye until the next time and another edition of Islamic Awakening.